States on a tourist visa to attend his best friend's wedding. He is an Australian national. This was Joseph's first visit to the U.S. While here, Joseph met a girl, Maria, and they fell in love. Maria is a U.S. citizen by birth. Both Joseph and Maria liked each other very much, and within a week, they got married. They were quite happy and wanted to settle down in the U.S. after their marriage, but there was something that made Joseph restless. Though the marriage was entered into in good faith, and Joseph had no preconceived intent of getting married while he's in the U.S. on a tourist visa, many of his friends told him that getting married on a tourist visa was dangerous and the immigration officials will deport him back to his home country. Joseph asked many people, but much to his surprise, he received many different answers from different people. He's now left with only one disturbing question, which, needless to say, was quite disturbing. Can one get married while on a tourist visa? Let's see which of Joseph's friends was correct as we explore answers to this question. Can you get married on a tourist visa? The basic answer, generally, is yes. You may enter the U.S. on a tourist visa, marry a U.S. citizen, and then return home before your tourist visa expires. The time when you run into trouble is when you enter the U.S. on a tourist visa with the clear intent of marrying and staying in the U.S. You might have heard stories about someone who got married in the U.S. while on a tourist visa, didn't return home, and successfully adjusted his or her status to permanent residence. Why were these people allowed to stay? It is possible to adjust status from a tourist visa or a visa waiver, but the people in this scenario were able to prove that they came to the U.S. with honest tourist intentions and happened to make a spur-of-the-moment decision to get married. Provided that you entered the U.S. with no preconceived intent to marry and file for adjustment of status can be difficult, but not impossible. You must remember that coming to the U.S. with the sole intention of getting married in the U.S. and filing for adjustment of status is deemed to be visa fraud, and U.S. immigration officers do not take kindly to anyone who they feel has committed visa fraud. Let's look at 8 things you should know before getting married on a tourist visa. Number 1, the marriage must be in good faith. One of the most important things that you will have to prove to the immigration officers is that your marriage was entered into in good faith. If the officers realize that the marriage was entered into only for immigration benefits, they will deny the application and deport you back to your home country. You will have to submit sufficient documentation and proof that your marriage is really a good faith marriage. Number 2, marriage should not be immediately after you land in the U.S. It is generally not advisable that you get married immediately after landing in the U.S. If the marriage happens all of a sudden, and you can prove that, you may be all right. But if you entered with preconceived marriage plans, it's not advisable to go forward with that. However, if you came in and you get married only after spending a reasonable period of time in the U.S. on your tourist visa, then the 30-60-day rule comes into play. What is the 30-60-day rule? The Department of State has an unwritten 30-60-day rule to help consular officers determine if somebody has committed visa fraud. Even though this rule was developed by the Department of State, it is also used by USCIS when they are adjudicating applications in the United States. Foreign nationals coming to the U.S. on tourist visas are subject to this 30-60-day rule. The 30-60-day rule makes it risky to apply for a change of status or marriage-based adjustment of status within 60 days of arriving in the U.S. and very dangerous within 30 days of arriving in the U.S. People who commit visa fraud can become permanently ineligible to enter the U.S. or receive any immigration benefits. This is why it is extremely important to know about this rule and to understand how it works before you get married and apply for adjustment of status. What will happen if you are denied adjustment of status? The USCIS has very strict rules for those who come to the United States on a tourist visa with the sole intention of getting married and trying to stay. Not everyone who gets married on a tourist visa while in the U.S. is eligible to apply for adjustment of status. The reasons for denial of adjustment of status may include a person's health, a criminal history, previous bans, or simply a lack of required evidence that the marriage is bona fide, or that you did not enter with a preconceived intent to marry. Now let's look at the pros and cons of this situation. If you enter the U.S. on a tourist visa and got married, Either of the following two things can happen. You can successfully apply for adjustment of status after the marriage and live happily ever after, or the immigration officials can find that there was preconceived intent, deny the application, and send you back to your home country. Please note that if the immigration officer does not find that you entered into a fraudulent marriage, you can always seek your immigrant visa through the consulate in your home country. The possibility of being denied an adjustment is very real, so you should both be prepared for any eventuality. You cannot leave the U.S. immediately after your marriage. Once you have married and filed for adjustment of status, you will not be able to leave the U.S. until you apply for and receive advance parole or your green card. If you leave the country before receiving one of these two documents, you will not be allowed to re-enter the United States. You and your spouse would have to start the immigration process from scratch by petitioning for a spouse visa for you, and you will have to remain in your home country until you can complete the immigrant visa process. Border protection officers are watching you. When you arrive on a tourist visa, the CBP, Customs and Border Protection, inspection officers at a port of entry will ask you the purpose of your travel to the U.S. You should always be upfront and honest with the immigration inspectors. If you state your intent is to see the Grand Canyon and a search of your luggage reveals a wedding dress, be prepared for the inevitable grilling. If the border officials believe that you are not coming to the U.S. for just a visit and you cannot prove your intent to leave before your visa expires, you'll find yourself on the next plane home. Enter the U.S. on a tourist visa, get married, and return to your own country. Many foreign nationals want to know if they can come to the U.S. on a tourist visa to get married, but with the clear intent of going back to their home country after the marriage. Nothing says that you can't get married on a tourist visa, but this can be tricky. You can get married and go back home before your visa expires, but you'll need hard evidence to prove to the CBP officials that you intend to return to your home country. You have to come armed with lease agreements, letters from employers, and above all, a return ticket. The more evidence that you can show that proves your intention to return home, the better your chances will be of getting through the border. No excuses for visa fraud. If you think it's easy to fool the U.S. immigration officers, then I would say you should think twice. If you are caught violating the immigration laws, you could be accused of committing visa fraud. If fraud is found, you will face serious consequences. At the very least, you will have to return to your home country. Even worse, you may receive a ban from re-entering the U.S., a ban which could be for a lifetime. All right, let's go back and see Joseph. He finally got all the answers to his questions. He knows now that he can't get married, he can file for adjustment, but he has to be able to prove that he had no intention of getting married and staying here when he came in. It's highly recommended that you look at the pros and cons of getting married on a tourist visa while in the U.S. before doing so. It is also suggested that you consider all your options, including a fiancé or spouse visa, to avoid any complexities in the future. Some moments are very precious and very important in life, marriage being one of them. Do not get married hastily. After reviewing all your options, pick the route that is best suited for you. Make your marriage the beautiful moment of your life. If you have any questions about what steps you should take in a particular situation, consult a Visa Pro immigration attorney. We will be happy to guide you through the process.